On March 20th, 1927, toward the end of the 1920s or the Jazz Age, the police were summoned to the home of Albert and Ruth Snyder, and they would find Albert Snyder brutally murdered. His wife was tied up, and she gave a story of intruders who had um, supposedly murdered her husband and stolen things. But however, this is a very stupidly done murder. He had been bludgeoned to death, and the stolen jewelry was found under the mattress. I mean, talk about stupid. But anyway, eventually she confessed that she had conspired with her boyfriend, corset salesman Judd Gray, in the murder. Okay. He was also married. Each of them pointed the finger at the other one for having come up with the idea to commit the murder and for having actually done the murder. Okay, but almost everybody seemed to believe his story instead of hers. I'm not sure why that is, but part of it might have been that somehow he seemed to have an affect that just seemed kind of soft. And so they used, the newspapers used things like the granite woman and the putty man. I mean, when I first heard that, the granite woman and the putty man, it sounds almost like it has kind of BDSM connotations, almost science fiction connotations. Okay, but a better description was Alexander Wolcott's, who called it the dumbbell murder done by two dumbbells with a dumbbell. Anyway, they were both convicted, and both of them were sent to the electric chair. Ruth Snyder became more, basically fell apart as she realized she was going to be executed when she was on death row. And she wrote out her story, but it was quite confused. It was, it was a lot of remembering and also a lot of religious platitudes. She had, as so many of them do, when she was on death row, she became very religious. She also converted to Catholicism, which a lot of people thought was a cynical ploy to try to get a commutation from the governor, who was the Roman Catholic Al Smith. But she did convert to Roman Catholicism. It didn't do her a bit of good. And, and she, just basically fell apart on death row. He managed to kind of hold it together, even though he was supposedly the putty man. Now, oddly enough, one thing I've always wondered about is the children that these two people had. He had one daughter, Jane Grey, and she had one daughter, Lorraine Snyder. And I've always been especially wondered about Lorraine Snyder because I've seen photographs of her. I've never seen one of Jane Grey. And because, Jane Grey still had her mother, Lorraine Snyder was in the horrible position of having lost dad to murder and then lost mom to the electric chair. So, you know, what was it like to grow up after that? I have read that she was able to have a normal life. I certainly hope so. But it must have been difficult. I read one person say that she married a businessman and had had a normal life. I wonder if she had any children, and maybe there's some descendants of Ruth Snyder or of Judd Gray. Anyway, while she was on death